The Fantasy Holics Podcast.
Jackson takes it himself, looking in dirt, back and forth. Oh, he broke his ankles. Now he's got an entourage, and he's got a touchdown.
Your source for all things fantasy. So fill up your cup, sit back, and enjoy.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Holics Podcast. And we are talking NBA basketball today. We are in the middle of our NBA mini-series where we are discussing the top NBA prospects for this upcoming draft. My name is Jordan Jaika, aka Dr. Fantasy, and I am here with Zach, who is now the Fantasy Caveman, and we are ready to rock and roll today with my favorite prospect in this NBA's draft, Aaron Nesmith. And I was telling the Caveman here before we started recording, we'll try not to let me talk for 20 minutes about him. I could probably go on for a little while, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet and to the point. Starting off with a recap of him, he's currently, he was a sophomore last season for Vanderbilt. Once again, he's kind of positionless. You know, we call him a wing, a forward, whatever term you like to use. But he had an incredible 2019 year for Vanderbilt. He showed a ton of improvement. Didn't have the strongest freshman season, but he averaged 23 points last season, had 4.9 rebounds. He shot 52.2% from three, so over 50% from behind the arc, 51% overall from the field. So actually his overall three-point percentage was higher than his two-point percentage, which is very unusual. You don't really see that a ton, but he's a tremendous shooter. I don't think there's really any argument, and you can argue about other pieces of his game, but in my opinion, there's no arguing that he's the strongest shooter in this year's class. And, you know, the NBA is all about shooting in today's game, and that's one of the reasons that I really like him. One thing that I do want to know is the reason that his season was cut short was not because of Corona, but it was actually because he had a fractured foot. So we'll, you know, not the biggest deal, but it's something that's maybe a little concerning moving forward. So that's something to monitor. He's currently being projected as a mid-first round pick, somewhere between 10 to 15 is where I'm seeing him in a lot of mock drafts. But in a class that's really weak, I think the one point I want to throw out there is there's kind of four guys that are on the top of most draft boards, and that fifth spot is really up for debate. So I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow snuck into that top five just based on his pure shooting ability. I think that he's going to go inside the top 10 just because so many teams need shooting. But I think he's one of the draft's best kept secrets just because a lot of people don't know his name, and he's the best shooter in the class. So what are your initial thoughts on Nesmith here?
Yeah, like you said, the shooting is just he can shoot. Like it's crazy. Like shooting over 50% from three is just that's insanity. I mean, let's call. I mean, obviously the NBA three is longer, but I could easily see him shooting, being among the league leaders in 3-point percentage, for sure. And another thing with him, I think he's not the greatest defender, but he's smart. He knows when to take chances. He knows when to take risks in that, and I think he averaged a steal and a half and a block a game, I believe, somewhere around there. So I think his defense, in addition to his shooting, his defense is, I mean, while it's solid. So I agree with you. I could see him possibly being that guy that could possibly go in the fifth spot, but I would honestly be really surprised if he fell out of the top 10. I could definitely. I mean, I'm probably not as big on him as you are, but I could definitely see top 10 for him for sure.
Yeah, and you kind of alluded to it already, but not only did he shoot a high percentage from behind the arc, but he shot a lot of three-pointers. I mean, we're not talking about a guy that shot 50% from three, and he only took 2 3-pointers a game. He averaged almost 9 3-point shots a game. So he was making 4.5 a game. I mean, that's a very high rate. So that's really impressive. And, one of the knocks on him, and you and I were talking or messaging back and forth about this, he did average under 1 assist per game in 35 minutes a game. So, I mean, that's really not great. But to me, I kind of attribute to that is he's a really strong player off of the ball. And he kind of knows what his role is on the offense. He's not a guy that's going to have the ball a ton in his hand. He's going to be shooting the ball off, coming off of screens. And I think that's really where he excels. On the defensive end, you made some points about him. And I'll say he's not a good one-on-one defender. Like, I'm not going to put him against the other team's best offensive force. But he's better, I'd say, in a zone scheme where you get to rotate. Because based on the scheme that he played at Vanderbilt, he rotates really well. He communicates with his teammates, which goes along with the high basketball IQ that you mentioned before. But, you mentioned the steals as well. He has good anticipation. He can steal the ball. But I don't think he's a one-on-one defender. I think he's more of a good team player. Diving into the weaknesses, one thing, he's not a playmaker. He's a great shooter. He's not the strongest ball handler. He's not going to get you a ton of assists. He's not going to always set his teammates up for great shots. That's just not what his game is. So I think that's something that he's going to have to work on. But at the same time, I think he's just going to be a scorer, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think, scoring's going to get you places in the league. But I think that's the thing that could possibly hold him back from being a top-end player is that he's a scoring he's a 3-point shooting specialist, and he doesn't work that well without the basketball in his hands. So I think that's something he can work on, and if he works on it and he gets to be solid in that aspect, he definitely has top end potential. But as I said, he's such a good shooter. And I feel like we mentioned this about 25 times in the past 5 minutes. He's a good shooter, but it's true. Like he could definitely, like you said, he's not. That's shooting's his game. So
yeah.
So there's nothing else. There's nothing else to really say there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So we'll hop over to the best fit NBA team-wise for him. I have Nesmith going to the Chicago Bulls. They also pick 7th overall right now, so it's a very realistic landing spot for him. So I think I like that spot for him. Reason being, they have 2 strong younger players in the front court, and Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter. Both showed flashes of being really good last season. And then in their backcourt, they have Zach LaVine and Kobe White, both guys who really came on last year, were really strong scorers. And then you kind of look at their 3 spot in that in their starting 5, and you're going, okay, they kind of have a hole there. So I think Nesmith could fit in right away playing that 3 spot for him. And I think he would have a great opportunity to score from the outside. LaVine and Kobe White can be playmakers. Both of them like to have the balls in their hand. And with Nesmith, he doesn't have to have the ball in his hand, so he can afford to play with ball-dominant guards, which the Bulls already have. So I like the fit between the players that they already have and them picking 7th. I wouldn't be surprised if he went in that spot.
Yeah, I definitely. The Bulls are just a great fit. Another team to watch out for. We were talking about this before we started here. But the 76ers, shooting. Here we go with the shooting word again. But they need shooting. And what better shooter in this class than Nesmith? And like you said, you think we looked at, what do we have? What do you say? Glenn Robinson's their starting wing right now. Yeah. So, but I think unfortunately with their draft position, it probably is unlikely unless he slips a little bit and they're able to make a move up. But 76ers could use him in a big way.
Yeah, no, and I like that too because Ben Simmons likes to have the ball in his hand. Like I said, I think he's going to go to a team that has ball-dominant guards because that's just not what his game is. So I think Ben Simmons is really he's a great playmaker. His skills are quite the opposite of Nesmith. So I think those two could really mesh really well together. So we'll hop into a few NBA comparisons. And I'm going to give you guys quite a few here. I'll give you kind of ranging all over the board. I'll start with the low end. I have Alec Burks, who has been kind of just a three wing in the NBA. Another guy I have is Kyle Korver, and I think he plays better defense than Kyle Korver, and I think that's really a low end. I think at worst for Nesmith. Oh, you don't like Kyle Korver? I mean, Kyle Korver was.
I know you're saying floor here, but I thought you were a bit higher on him than that.
I definitely am, but you got to be realistic, you know. I'll say out loud that I think Nesmith's going to turn into an NBA All-Star based on his shooting ability. I really do, and he's not a bad defender. He's average right now, and I think he can improve. But we'll say that at the worst-case scenario, Kyle Korver was one of the best three-point shooters in the league. So I think at worst, that's what he's going to be, one of the best three-point shooters in the league. Now, realistically, two guys that I have for him, I have Klay Thompson and Devin Booker. Thompson was a stronger defender coming out than Nesmith. But once again, I think Nesmith has the ability to be better. I think he just has to be in a good situation for him. The other one I really like is Devin Booker, just because he reminds me a lot of Devin Booker. Only played one season at Kentucky, and he was an absolutely incredible, just pure shooter at Kentucky. He only averaged right around 10 points. But Devin Booker's freshman season is very similar to Nesmith's freshman season. And I believe if Booker stayed a second year at Kentucky, as Nesmith did at Vandy, that they would have had similar stats. So I think just pure shooters. Devin Booker, he averaged 6 assists this NBA season. So I think he's a little more of a playmaker than Nesmith. But I just think, just from a pure shooting standpoint, I really think that he can develop into a Devin Booker kind of offensive player.
Yeah, I definitely. Those are good, and like I love as kind of like his ceiling. I love your Klay Thompson comparison. I feel like if he hits his ceiling, he could be a Klay Thompson level guy. I would say right now he's probably like a Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield's not the greatest defender, but I think he's solid and he can shoot. Buddy Hield shoot, and that's that Nesmith can shoot. Like there's no denying that. So I think I just think their styles right now. I think Buddy Hield would probably be I think that's the best comparison right now. His potential is. Buddy Hield hasn't been in the league too long, so we probably don't truly know what Buddy Hield's ceiling is right now. But Nesmith has the potential to be much better than Buddy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think after editing this pod, I'm going to count how many times we said shooting, because I feel like we just, for almost 13 minutes now, I feel like we only talked about shooting. But, that's the reality is, as much as I love Nesmith, it's really kind of the consensus in the community that he's the best shooter in this year's class. And to me, no matter what, there's a place in today's game for shooting. You look at, that's Steph Curry's changed the game, obviously, and made shooting probably the most important part of playing in today's NBA. So I think just based on that alone, he has great upside. And I'm looking forward to see where he lands, because, that can have a huge impact on a player. If he lands in a poor situation, obviously that's not going to help out his long-term potential, but I'm interested to see where he goes. I really hope it's within the top 10 in a good situation, but we'll have to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, like you said, we said shooting so much. I feel like this is like our version of Allen Iverson's practice interview.
Yeah. It's the exact same thing. Shooting, we're talking shooting. But all right, I think we talked about Nesmith enough for today. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be doing a few more of these every single week leading up until the draft. So make sure you tune in for that. If you don't already, make sure you like the Fantasy Holics on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We have tons of NBA, MLB, and NFL content going up every single week. And don't forget to not follow us. look at our new website, thefantasyholics.com. We have anywhere between 3 and 5 articles going up every single day, so definitely not missing content there. So we appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you next time.